Today, we're going to talk about something that might be happening behind the scenes with your retirement account. I was reading this fascinating paper from the Journal of Banking and Finance, and it brought up a hidden conflict of interest, something that could be quietly swaying how your money is managed.
Yeah, it really all comes down to this one simple question. We trust our advisors to have our best interests at heart, right? But what happens when they're also managing a much, much more profitable fund for someone else? Well, the research we're looking at today suggests we might need to be asking a few more questions.
So, to really get what's happening here, we have to wrap our heads around this key industry practice. It's called side-by-side management.
So here's the deal. You've got one advisory firm, one team of smart people, managing two very different kinds of funds. On one hand, you have the mutual fund, the kind of thing that's probably in your 401k. And on the other hand, you've got these exclusive high-stakes hedge funds for very wealthy clients. Now, the issue isn't that they're managed by the same people. The problem is how those people get paid.
And this is where the whole thing gets skewed. For your mutual fund, the manager gets a pretty small flat fee, maybe 1% of the assets they manage. It's fine, it's steady, but it's not going to buy anyone a private jet. But the hedge fund? Oh, that's a whole different ballgame. They get the legendary 2N20. That's a 2% management fee plus 20%, a fifth, of all the profits. That creates this huge, almost irresistible incentive to pour all their best ideas into the hedge fund. I love this analogy because it just clicks. You're the chef. One restaurant pays you a salary no matter what. The other gives you a huge cut of the profits. Come on, be honest. Where are you sending the best cuts of meat, the freshest produce? You're going to send them to the place that can make you rich. And in the world of finance, those freshest ingredients are the absolute best investment ideas. So you can see the potential problem here. The researchers who wrote this paper decided to dig in and see if this was a real issue. And the first thing they looked at was how investors, people just like you and me, react when they find out their fund is managed this way. So what do you think? When people learn about this setup, do they get a little nervous, or do they just trust that the firm is going to do the right thing for everyone? Let's see what the data shows. Yep, the answer is pretty simple and direct. Investors get skeptical. They see the potential for their mutual fund to get the leftovers and, well, they act on that feeling. And here's the proof in the numbers. On average, these side-by-side funds see 0.3% less new money coming in every single month. Now, that might not sound like a huge number, but month after month, that adds up. It's a steady drain, and it shows a real lack of confidence from investors. And that skepticism, it goes into overdrive when the fund starts to do poorly. If a side-by-side fund underperforms, investors are way quicker to yank their money out. It's like they're thinking, aha, I knew it. They're giving all the good stuff to the hedge fund, and now my portfolio is paying the price. Okay, so put yourself in the fund manager's shoes. You see investors getting jumpy and heading for the exits. What's your next move? This brings us to the second part of this investigation. And honestly, it's kind of shocking. They've got to do something, right? They need to make their performance numbers look better to stop the bleeding and calm everyone down. But how do you do that, especially if your investments aren't actually doing that great? And here it is. This is the big one. The research found evidence suggesting these managers might be, let's say, optimistically pricing the assets in the mutual fund. They're not making things up out of thin air, but they might be using very favorable models to price things that are hard to put a solid number on, like certain kinds of bonds. And again, the paper puts a number on it. It looks like these side-by-side funds, on average, overstate the value of their assets by about 0.12% compared to other funds. It's a small tweak, but it's enough to artificially puff up the fund's performance and make it look just a little bit healthier than it actually is. And this temptation to fudge the numbers, it gets way stronger when the pressure is on. When the fund is doing badly, they inflate the numbers more to cover it up. When it's super easy for investors to pull their cash, they inflate them more to prevent a panic. And when they hold these complicated assets that don't have a clear price tag, well, that gives them all the wiggle room they need to paint a rosier picture. Okay, so we've seen how investors get nervous and how managers might respond to that. But let's tie this all together. Let's talk about why this isn't just some academic exercise and why it could actually matter for your money. Here's the bottom line. This isn't just theory. That number you see on your quarterly statement, it could be influenced by all these behind-the-scenes pressures. You might be making big financial decisions based on a number that's been slightly polished to keep you from selling. So let's just trace the path one more time.
It all starts with that 2 and 20 fee, which creates this huge incentive for the manager to focus on the hedge fund. That makes everyday investors nervous, so they start pulling their money out. To stop that, the manager feels the pressure to make the mutual fund's numbers look better, maybe by overstating their value. And the final results? The number on your statement might be telling you a really good story, but it might not be the whole story.
Now look, this doesn't mean every single manager is cooking the books. Of course not. But it does show there's a powerful hidden incentive baked right into the system. And it leaves us with a really important question to ask ourselves. When we look at our own portfolio, are we seeing a clear, accurate photograph of its value? Or are we seeing a portrait that's been touched up to look just a little bit better than reality?